What's up, guys? John here, and I have a new revision for the Categorizer. So I just wanted to make a video and make a world download in case anybody wanted to check it out. So the main goal of this revision, this is what, like the fourth or fifth or whatever revision, which thankfully I didn't put out videos on all those, but yeah. But the main goal of this was to make it as fast as possible with this type of categorizer. And I think I was able to do it. So I will, I guess, go over some of the differences between the old style, which was this one, and the new style. So yeah, this is more compact. I know it doesn't exactly appear to be more compact. In fact, it actually looks bigger. But that doesn't really make much difference, right? Because when I say compact, what I'm talking about is compacting the redstone or compacting the other mechanical parts of the machine to actually make it faster. And that was the whole goal on this. So this is a demo that I have here. So the whole goal, of course, we can't increase the item movement rate, which is hopper speed, but we can remove a lot of junk and actually increase the throughput speed, which is the speed that goes from passing. So from passing a non-matching item through that slice into the next and into the next, we can increase that rate, which is what I've done here, and which is what I think is the fastest that you can actually get on this type of filter, at least in Bedrock, from what I can tell. So yeah, I'll be providing world download, and let me go ahead and get into a description of what makes this new and different. So this is the previous version that I made. If you checked out the last world download, then you would have seen this version with the piston and the torch at the bottom. So that one also used only 3 hoppers, but because I was still of the mind to use this dropper elevator input style with the items moving through a hopper and then into the chest and then into another hopper. So that was actually still pretty slow, and in that version we just didn't have enough space here to be able to put something else in. So that one actually had to be, 1 block wider than this one. But with this design, so I completely gutted all that to remove any excess hoppers. So anything that we don't need got pulled off. And what we're doing here now is just going from the 3rd hopper straight into the dropper elevator. So that dropper is actually pointing sideways and going into this one. So the difference between this is that we have removed 2 extra hoppers plus a chest, and we're going straight into the dropper. And on this one, we actually had 7 droppers for the elevator. Well, on this one, we actually only have 6. So it's gotten quite a speed boost. And so to describe what this chunky part is down here, which I'll show more when I get done with the description, I'll go and get into a tutorial for the guys that are on Xbox, whatever. But this is a falling edge detector. And instead of using an item detection like that one, we can just use the torch here, because the torch, excuse me, so this torch will only ever turn on or off. So it's going to turn off whenever we are putting an item into the dropper. Yeah. So when this torch turns on, that means that we have input an item that is matching, okay? Because this torch is going to turn on to lock the hopper. And because the 2nd hopper would be unlocked in that case, that means we're actually pushing items into the output. So I'll just go ahead and show you here. So this is redstone. I think that's all I have here. So if we just put some in, so that hopper is now, or the torch is now locked because we're dumping items through. And you can see just how fast it is. As soon as that turns off, this is going to act as a falling edge detector, which is going to activate the dropper elevator to push the redstone back up into the index chest. Okay, and that is also the case whenever you are putting in an item that does not match, and it just goes through, and in this case, it gets passed through to the output. So yeah, it is much faster on the throughput. So one of the other things that I did here, or that I included, was a different filter design this is actually by a YouTuber named Paul Smith. So he left a comment saying that he came up with a filter design that was actually more compact, and it is actually 1 block shorter, and I'm just including this because I like it. But it uses the property that we have here in Bedrock to be able to power a piston and have it turn off a torch. So you can see that it is still 2 wide tileable, and I like that because it actually does make it smaller. And I also like, this is his idea, that you just put the lamps at the bottom, and I like it because it gives you a little room, and you can still see. But yeah, so the falling edge detector, even though it looks a bit goofy, I mean, honestly, if you know what a falling edge detector is, and if you want to try to make one that's more compact and that works as fast as this, then be my guest. But I could not think of any other way to do this. So yeah, it's a bit chunky, but at least it is on the back side and you can hide it. But yeah, so a falling edge detector, the way that this works, whenever we power the dust, so whenever we put power here, the output does not change, but whenever we remove power, then we get a 1 tick pulse. So this is the style that I have included. You can also make one if you don't mind slowing it down. So this one does have some issues. So first of all, it uses repeaters, so it has an extra 1 tick delay than the other one. And second of all, because it uses a repeater here, we have to have a powered block here. So we can't use glass. So what that means is that whenever this torch turns on, that powered block is going to keep this hopper locked. And that torch turns on every time we have a matching item enter this filter. So what that means is that if we're sorting for redstone, then all the redstone is going to get backed up into this double chest. And, if you put in a lot of items at one time, if this double chest gets backed up, then it'll get backed up into the hopper. If that gets backed up, it'll get backed up into this chest. And if that gets backed up, then you're going to be in trouble because then it's going to back up into the filter. So that's the reason why I don't like this, aside from it being 1 tick slower. It's that, potentially if you end up putting in like 3 double chests worth of items, it could potentially break the filter. But chances are that's not going to happen. But anyway, so I already have a slice over here. So I'm going to go ahead and build off of this one to show you how to make this. Okay. All right, so we are going to start with, that's going to be our input hopper there. And we're just going to come down here to start to make our filter, which I guess I'll just put glass there. All right, so for the filter, you're going to need the filter hopper, of course, pointing back. Our output hopper is going to be pointing sideways. And then we are going to need our third hopper pointing forward. Okay. So the third hopper is going to be pointing into a dropper that is, you can see, facing in this direction. That is going to be pointing into another dropper pointing up, 2 more droppers pointing up, 1 pointing sideways, and then 1 pointing back into where we are going to be putting our chest. Okay, so that's going to be our index. So to build the rest of the filter here, so for our input, we just need to throw in some blocks there. So we're going to need a comparator block, need a repeater at 2 ticks, and then a block with dust in front of the repeater. And here we can just put in a piston. In this case, I just have sticky pistons because whatever, because that's just what's in my inventory, but you can use a normal one. And likewise, you can just put regular blocks between them. Any solid block will work as long as it is a solid block and it's conductive. So anyway, put a torch on the side of the piston, block above it, torch above that, or a torch on that, and a dust there. So for the filter, you're going to need a repeater. We're going to need to come off of the second glass here with a block. Dust going down onto the block with a torch there. All right, so coming off of this bottom piece of glass, we need a solid block. Now, before I put dust on that to power it, I'm going to put in a, well, I can't put anything there. So that obsidian I'm just going to leave there. But what you want to do is whenever you're designing this system, if you're going to be using this with the pistons, before you put all these torches in, you're going to want to have all these pistons in place, because if I put the torch in with the dust, then the piston's going to extend and it's going to, be trouble. So before you do that, you're going to want to put all of your pistons in down there like this. So piston with a block going all the way to the end, and then the last one you can just cap with an obsidian, and then go through, put in your torches and your dust, and then finally you can set up the filters. But in this case, we just put the piston there. So we're going to need dust going onto a solid block. So this does have to be a solid block here, because that is what's going to power the piston there. And then a torch coming off of that. Okay, so if you did not put in a solid block here, if you tried to put in something like glass or a slab, then that torch would not work. So it would have to be a solid block. Okay, let's see how the torch turned off. All right, so to get into the way that the dropper elevator works, so we're just going to start by coming out, and I'm just going to break everything around me. So we're going to need an observer facing forward. Next to that one, an observer facing forward to power this dropper. And then we can just build our chain of observers up. So remember, you're going to want one more than the dropper that you have. And then finally, so the way that this works, we're going to have to put an observer facing down like that to complete our item elevator there. And I guess now I can just go ahead and put all the blocks in. And then at the very top, put a dust, a repeater at 1 tick, and a dust. All right, so to do the lower section with the falling edge detector and all that, so first of all, we're going to need to go ahead and put in a chest here. So that's going to be the beginning of our output. So a chest, a hopper below that pointing down. And then here we are going to want a double chest going right below the dropper elevator. So to make our output, we can have our double chest here. And then we're just going to put a hopper here to pull any item from that chest to come down. So hopper there. All right, so to do the whatchamacallit, the falling edge detector, so I'm just going to go ahead and build these blocks out. All right, and we want a dust. So that's going to come up into the block with a torch. We're going to have a block above that, and then a torch there, and a torch on the side. Okay. Ooh, I'm missing a torch there. Yeah. All right, so torch there, and finally we do need to have a top half slab here. So this will not work with glass. This has to be a slab, and that is if you want this to actually work correctly. But anyway, so that is the setup complete. There's not a lot to it. And once you get that, of course, put in your filter items. So you're going to want 19111. What happened here? Let's see. That went down. Did you come out here? No. Hold on. I gotta find out where this item went. Okay, it went into the dropper. Alright. And I don't think I set up any. Yeah, I did. Okay. I didn't set up anything there. Okay. But that is the design. Set up your filters with 19111. And of course, you're going to have to use the starting circuit or the item input circuit that I used in the previous video. So that still applies. You have to use that to separate the items. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, watch my previous video where I describe it and show you how to make it. And likewise, you're going to need to fill up the chest here with blocker items, something that is going to have to be renamed. Like I said, you just get get any item that you have plenty of, or any item that you want to use as a blocker. Get a stack of it and put it in an anvil and rename it, because you do not want this to be any item that can pass through the sorter. Because if I'm using paper here and I put another paper into the sorter, then it's going to pull down a piece of paper and it's just going to make a big mess. So you don't want that to happen. But anyway, so once you get done setting it up, make sure that you have your input circuit hooked up, and then you should be good to go. But that is the end of the demo and the little tutorial. So I wanted to get into a couple other things. Paul Smith also told me that he had to correct me. So first of all, with the observers, so I was under the impression that an observer, whether it's detecting dust, repeater, a rail, or anything else, that it would have a 2-tick delay, and that it was a special case. I thought that was how they were made. That was how they were intended to be, because that's how they are. So you assume that if that's how they are, then that's how they were intended to be. But no, that's not the case. So I thought it was a special case or an exception when an observer is detecting another observer that it only has a 1-tick delay. And that is why I was so adamant about saying do not use anything else in your item elevators, just use observers. But Paul corrected me that no, you can actually use other things to make the dropper elevator. Notably, in place of observers, you can use rails. Now, Gizmo told me that he remembers Navy Nexus showing this in his item elevator videos that, or going over it and saying that, yes, you can use these and they are the same speed as observers. I must have missed that. But, Paul told me how it works. So you don't really have to watch this. It's just going to kind of be a mess. But so anyway, observers detecting any items that work on C ticks will only have a 1 tick delay. So a C tick is what we call a consumer tick. And any of these items that you see in front of us will work on C ticks. So an observer detecting a piston, detecting a lamp or a rail, or a hopper being locked and unlocked, or a dropper being fired, the observer will only have a 1 tick delay. However, whenever it's detecting other things that we consider to be producers that work by P ticks, so these items will actually produce a 2 tick delay in an observer. So repeater, torch, dust, comparator, yada yada. So if you are interested in learning more about that, feel free to look it up on YouTube. There are guys that have really devoted a lot of time to, figuring out C ticks and P ticks. But I could tell you simply that this is a C tick generator. So you can see that the dust is not powered. It does not appear to be powered, and yet we have rails, lamps, pistons, and even the dropper getting powered here, right? But the repeater and the comparator are not getting powered. Likewise, if I were to take this dust out to go to a block, then you can see that it is not turning off the torch. Which is also interesting in that if we are powering a piston here, so the piston will be powered and we can put a torch on that, and what would normally happen is that the piston would get powered and turn off the torch, but in this case it does not do that. So this is a C clock. So all of these things the observer will detect with only a 1 tick delay. However, you can see that even if we try to detect the redstone line, the observer is not doing anything. So yeah, feel free to look up C ticks and P ticks if you want to learn more about that. But just to say, yes, if we are using any type of a rail, that will produce the same type of delay as an observer. Likewise, if we are locking and unlocking a hopper, that will have the same 1 tick delay. But if we were to use redstone or a repeater or a torch or anything like that, then you can see that that does indeed have an extra delay. All right, so one of the other things I was going to go over before I get into what those things are. So how fast can an observer clock? Because if an observer can have a 1 tick delay, just like a repeater does, so a repeater can have a 1 tick delay as well as a comparator, and we can actually use a repeater to make a 2 tick clock, which is as simple as doing this. So now we have a 2 tick clock, which is a straight up on off signal. So is that actually possible to do with an observer? Well, no, because an observer is going to, for whatever reason, it's going to default to a 3 tick clock. So here we're using a 2 tick clock to trigger the observer, and you can see a 2 tick clock is an on off signal, but I made a little frequency counter here for us. So that's a 2 tick clock just coming off the repeaters. But you can see the observer trying to detect that cannot activate that quickly. So the observer is just going to default to a 3 tick clock, which is an on, off, off. and you can see the frequency counter here is just showing that it's a 3-tick clock. And that is the case whether it's dust, whether it's a torch, whether it's a rail, C-tick, P-tick, whatever tick, no matter what you do, an observer will not clock any faster than that. And that kind of ruined my hopes of making a faster item elevator. So if you're not aware, if you wanted to make a double hopper speed item elevator with observers, you would need to have, with a single stack of observers, you would need to have a 2-tick clock. Now, because we cannot actually fire the observers that quickly, then we're just going to have to, give up on that idea and use 2 observer towers to make a dropper elevator. And I should just leave these, but that looks better just, having observers there. So anyway, you can make a double hopper speed item elevator. This is a silent design, so you can see that it is double hopper speed, right? But it's they're kind of terrible to build because you have to build them like that. So if you wanted to make a double hopper speed item elevator, I'd say, man, just make one like this to where you're just detecting the item. You're making a 2-clock. You have a little 2-clock generator down there with the comparator, and this thing is just pumping out items, and eventually you're going to have some items get stuck. Sometimes it may make noise, but I mean, you can move a whole lot of items very quickly, So if it's coming from like a farm or whatever, and you don't really care about a little bit of noise, just not noise all the time, then those are a great option. Now, if you want something to be faster, you can actually double these up and produce a quad hopper speed item elevator. And if you're not aware, quad hopper speed is the same rate that a hopper minecart will pull items down. So that was quad hopper speed. But if you are trying to make a perfect, silent, and lossless quad hopper speed item elevator, then just, good luck. So this is like if we wanted to make a single design or a single, like tower to move items, they are very difficult to engineer. It does work because you can, send a bunch of items through, or you can send, just send a single item, and it's not going to get missed. It's not going to make noise. It's going to work. Or you can, just straight up dump a bunch of items in, and it's going to work, and it's going to be quad hopper speed. But before you get into all that, so first of all, you can see how big it is, right? So to make a quad hopper speed item elevator, I have to take up, that's 6 blocks of space there, not including all the redstone below. So that's one of the issues, is just its sheer size. Another problem is that the way that items enter these systems, like if you were to try to feed this with like a water stream of items, then having a different input timing, so having the items come in at random times, will actually cause all of these systems to break. They don't break, but they will eventually get like items stuck or make noise. So as far as like double and quad hopper speed item elevators go, this is a good, idea for like a double hopper speed. But a better idea would probably just be to make like 2 or 4, next style, Navy Nexus style, uh, like single wide hopper speed item elevators. So just make a bunch of those in the line, have your water stream going to that, and that way, as soon as they get items, they'll just start pushing items up. They'll never break, they'll never make noise. You don't have to worry about any of that. And they probably, you know, like for a quad hopper speed, that will actually take up less space than this thing will, you know. So forget all this, that's all a mess, but you know, it was interesting to look into and to play around. But anyway, that was all for the build. I'm going to leave all this junk here as a world download. So if anybody has any comments or questions, you can feel free to let me know. But be sure to check out the world download if you're interested in this. And don't forget that you need the item input circuit from my previous video to make this work. All right, so that's all. Thank you all for watching, and I will see y'all later.